So funny. Get the fucking British co-host on, and like all I've done is talk about fucking tea every episode.
That's
Like,
not
and
fair.
I don't even drink that much tea at this point, to be honest with you. Like, it's one of the lesser things that I drink. I do love a cup
Should
of tea
I
with
should
some
I start
biscuits,
talking
though.
about cowboys every episode? Would that make you feel better?
I mean, could you?
Ew.
Oh!
I'm
That was a
Ryan.
very extreme. I'm Jake. I feel like it was a very extreme intro from me. I'm sorry. Maybe I should dial. Let's just dial it back a little bit.
Hey Jake, what are we?
We are functionally literate.
And what are we reading today?
14 by. I can never remember his name. Please do the
Peter
bit.
Kleins.
Peter Kleins. There it is. I mean, I should probably fucking know that by now. I'm not
It's
gonna lie
alright.
to you.
Today we are discussing chapters 42 through 48. Let's
we are.
briefly recap what happened before this.
Do you want to do that? Do you want to do
I
that
mean,
bit?
I'll tell you that bit. So
you can-
the most relevant thing, like the thing that happened immediately before this was the residents of the Kvatch building found out because, Oscar told them that he was going to be out of town for 4 or 5 days because of a family emergency. And so
yeah.
everyone in the building was like, sweet, we're going to go fucking check out the basement. But then
I too was like, sweet. I hope they go check out the basement.
before he actually left, though, they managed to get him to be away from the building for like an hour and a half through some bogus excuse where like one of the residents needed to like go across town for an extra shift because someone was sick. So they had 90 minutes to go check out the basement. They did that. They found the sub-basement. They found a vault. They got into the vault, and they found this big-ass fucking tunnel. They didn't have time to go check out the tunnel, but they found a lot of stuff, so then they went back up, and that was how the last chapter ended. Oh, yeah, and also they found writing on the walls. They found a lot of writing on the walls, like the episode before last.
Yeah.
A lot of writing on the walls.
All of the writing was on the walls.
Hey, also, if this is your first time, listening to Functionally Literate and you've decided to pick this episode, weird choice. I would recommend you start at the beginning of this book.
I would recommend you do that too. Or you can be a fucking wild card.
I mean,
And
if
can
you
just
want to just
start
stick
right
with this
here.
episode, we'll make it work, I guess.
I mean, this is a good place to start.
Just halfway through the book, great place to start.
Exactly. This is exactly where you need to begin. Like those freaks that always go to like the end of the book and read it first before they start.
Yeah, they gotta read the last page before they start.
What
like,
monsters? What absolute monsters?
Absolute monsters. It's just like, well, I gotta know if it has a happy ending before I read it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, okay. Sure.
Do you know, like, that's the equivalent? You know, like the whole tea conversation, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't understand what's so bad about putting the milk in first. That is the literary equivalent of putting the milk in first.
It's just not done.
Just cursed. Cursed behavior.
This episode is going to be all about exploring the tunnel that leads down into the earth. Let's get into it.
Chapter 42. How Nate discovers that investigating the Department of the Interior for clues was fruitless.
But we're not delving down into the earth in this chapter.
I felt like these next couple of chapters were so short. Were they really short? I felt like they were just quick firing. There was a point in this set of chapters that we're talking about this episode where I was like, wow, they are moving at light speed. And then some of them I felt like were going on forever, you know? Do you go what I mean?
Yeah. I'll bring up those chapters when we specifically get to them, but I know what you mean. Yeah, like it felt like some of these chapters are just like gliding by.
Yeah.
This one was one of them, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So we start this chapter off with, surprise, Nate's not doing his job.
Who's surprised?
Surprise.
Eddie is probably surprised.
So he decided to follow up with the Department of the Interior, as some of you may recall. He called the Department of the Interior and got in touch with the Records Department to see what he could find out about the Kvatch building's landmark status. And the last time he called, he spoke with a woman, Elaine, who found it all very interesting because there is a distinct lack of information about the Kvatch building. She could see that it existed, but she had no information on it. And so she was like, I'm going to look into this. Here's my extension. Call me back whenever. He didn't call her back for like a month.
Which really frustrated me. Like this whole time I've been like, there's literally someone investigating for you at a place that has all the fucking records.
Yeah.
Call them back.
Call them fucking back. Well, as it turns out, there's no need because there's nothing to find out. Some shady shit happened.
Yeah, it was like the person that was looking into it got fired.
She got
or like moved to transferred to another department. And then,
like,
but the
he's
guy
not even sure
who
if she works for the Department of the Interior anymore.
Yeah, it was like such a transfer that's like the guy who took her place was like, I do not know where she is.
Yeah, his name is Russell.
Russell.
Russell was very willing to help Nate out, right? But he was like, oh, hang on, when did you speak with Elaine about this? And he was like, about 4 weeks ago. And he's like, so 3 weeks ago, we got hit with a virus. Probably somebody downloading porn at work. But yeah, no, it totally wiped out like all of our requisitions for like 2 weeks. So you're probably going to have to start at square one again. But, you know, she probably didn't get very far since this happened like a week before we lost all of our data. So I can help you get started again if you want. And Nate was like, no, something screwy's happening. Sorry to bother you. Click.
Yeah. I mean, good move.
Yeah, because it didn't explicitly say it, but the impression Nate seems to get here is this all happened because of him.
Yeah. I mean, that's not really a far-fetched idea given
It's
some
not.
of the fucking shit that's going on. Yeah, I would assume, because it's like whoever's running lock management does not want people snooping, and there's got to be a much bigger story happening here at this point, you know?
Yeah,
like,
they clearly have government ties in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like this building has some, like, extreme fishy shit going on. Like, people working there for, like, fucking 100 years ago. Yeah. Like on a day-to-day, just in and out office job vibes, but in like this, what has become an apartment complex.
Yeah.
Too weird.
Too spooky. Too weird. So then Nate went home. Fast forward to the end of work. He managed to find a parking spot fairly quickly. It felt too good to be true to him, so he like ensured that street sweeping wasn't happening that day.
Yeah.
Because that's what got him in trouble in one of these earlier chapters. We didn't mention it at the time, but in one of these chapters, Nate found a parking spot super easily, and then the next morning he had a ticket because it turns out street sweeping was happening. That's why he got a super easy parking spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so while he was checking to see if street sweeping was happening, Debbie, like, touched him, and it scared the shit out of him.
I mean, to be fair, I too would be very jumpy, because all they seem to be doing at the moment is just, like, stuff that they shouldn't be doing.
Right. It's like any fucking moment someone's going to show up with a van and, like, throw him in and, like, never to be seen again.
Literally, it's like snooping where he shouldn't be. Everyone is potentially like looking for him.
Yeah.
I think I would be fucking jumpy in that situation as well. I would be very
Yeah.
jumpy.
Yeah. But Debbie was like, oh, sorry. Didn't mean to scare you. I wanted to talk to you about the little expedition that's going to be happening soon. Clive can't go because of work. And he's like, what about you? And she's like, it would be weird doing something like that without him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. What's that fucking Bechdel test? Do you know the Bechdel test? Is it Bechdel?
I'm familiar.
Yeah. I feel like this book completely fails the Bechdel test.
Well, I mean, so that's one of those things where, I mean, I'm married. I could plausibly see my wife not being comfortable doing something like that without me.
True.
Like,
I mean, yeah.
Just saying. I mean, I see what you're saying. I could easily see some women being like, nah, fuck that. I don't care if my husband can't go. I'm fucking going.
I just I'm just having fun pointing it out at this point. You know, it's like I don't find it annoying at all. I'm just like pointing it out because I think it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know, because it's the more I've started, like, because it started out as like, wow, what one-dimensional women, and then I was like, oh my god, one-dimensional characters across the whole fucking book.
Yeah.
You know? But it kind of it works with what the book's trying to do, I guess. You know?
Yeah.
It's like it almost helps that all the characters are very one note in a way, I guess. You know?
I mean, there's so many of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if they were much more nuanced, I feel like this would be a much longer book, I think.
Yeah. I think that, that's kind of the issue with, you couldn't do it any other way, really, you know? Like, because you would need so many characters because it's in, like, an apartment complex.
Yeah.
You know? So all of the people living in the building are going to be a lot of the people living in the building are going to be involved in some way. So you need to introduce those characters. But if you flesh all those characters out, you're going to end up with like fucking George R.R. Martin length book, you know?
Yeah.
You'd probably tie like a death threat to it and throw it through someone's window, you know, like a brick of a book.
So the chapter ends with Nate and Debbie going into the building, and she's like looking at the plaques in the main lobby, and she asks Nate if Veek was sure that Kvatch is an Indian name, and he was, Nate was like, yeah, I mean, that's what she said. And then like Debbie was like trying to remember something about Indian names, but like she lost the thread, and she's like, sorry, and that's how the chapter ends. I wonder if at some point in one of these future chapters, if Debbie's going to say that she looked up the meaning of Kvatch and discovered that it means armor like you did.
Yeah, I kind of hope that it pops up. I don't know. If you're doing a level of investigating and you find like something that's named, like if you're investigating a building and it's named something in a different language, it makes sense. Like that was my first thought. I was like, oh, I should find out what this means. It probably has some relevance to what the purpose.
But none of them did that.
No, none of them have done that. And I'm like, that's like the first port of call that I did.
Yeah.
You know, like I haven't done a lot of like looking around and like research on different things that have popped up in this book, but that was the one I did do.
Yeah.
You know, because it's just, I don't know, it's just so obvious.
Yeah. Chapter 43. How Nate, Zila, and Roger set out on an adventure to see what lay at the end of the tunnel. So, it's Thursday night. They are ready to go on their expedition. Oscar has left the building.
Oh, yeah.
No, wait, I'm sorry. That's wrong. Oscar leaves the building the next morning. Thursday night, they prepare.
Okay. I see.
So they decided that Nate, Zila, and Roger would investigate the tunnel. Veek was benched because, asthma.
Because of the asthma. Yeah, but it's like she hasn't had asthma in so long, which is just kind of devastating. That's so unlucky.
Yeah, it's super unlucky. Tim decided it would be best for him to not go, because if this wound up being a multiple day thing, it wouldn't be good for him to just disappear for multiple days with that detective, like, having all eyes on him.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, Roger, Zila, and Nate.
Mandy and Andrew weren't even a serious consideration. Like, they were like,
obviously.
nah, we're not fucking bringing them. Like, Mandy
Yeah.
would say no, and you know what? Andrew might say yes.
But nobody wants to be stuck with Andrew in some
No.
fucking tunnels. Like, I don't know. Andrew, I'd be fucking afraid. I'd be scared for my goddamn life. I'd be like, this motherfucker's gonna slay me for righteous reasons, you know, like, repent! Like, you know.
So Oscar leaves the next morning, and there was a little bit of a narration dedicated to, like, how they prepared, right? Zila brought her camera and extra memory cards. Everyone chipped in to help her buy another. Tim bought a bunch of fucking hiking gear. I think Veek argued, like, oh, you don't need to do that, but he did it anyways. And he decked them out with, like, you know, really good hiking backpacks, water bottles, like the bottom of their backpacks doubled as, like, a sleeping bag. All of them had whistles on their bags, like, so if something happened, they could blow the whistle, and they were going to keep somebody down in the break room to listen for the whistle if something happened. That felt questionable to me. Like, I wonder if anyone would actually have heard that whistle if they were far enough down.
Yeah, that one was questionable.
But I mean, like, you know, they had to do something because they knew their phones weren't going to work down there.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the best you got, I guess. What else could you do, to be honest? What else could you do?
Yeah.
Like divers have, like, the rope, don't they? So you get, like, miles and miles and miles of rope, and then they just pull on the rope.
Well, they weren't going to get miles of rope.
That's fair.
Tim also gave Nate a pedometer to, like, kind of gauge how far down they were going. He said if his math was right, every 90 feet would be 10 feet down.
That's fair. That's quite deep. It's quite a slope.
They all start going down there. Veek's going with them because she's planning on hanging out in the break room area, like, when they first go. And Nate was like, well, I feel bad leaving you all alone. And she's like, I'm not going to be alone. We're going to be ripping this place apart to see what we can find while you three are, like, going down the tunnel.
Yeah.
And, like, literally the moment they went down the ladder, they lost their signal.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I would not be one of the people going into that motherfucking tunnel. I would not. Genuinely, I'd be like, this is fucking. That's too wild for me.
Too wild for me. Not happening. Not doing it.
Literally. Yeah. It's like, what? It's an old fucking mine shaft. I was like, if this shit caves in, no thank you. No thank you for the salad. I'm okay.
So Nate also brought a thermometer. So when they got down to the bottom of, like, the circular stairway with, like, the knife switch that turns the lights on in the tunnel, he checked the thermometer and it read 94 degrees Fahrenheit. And he asked, like, Zila and Roger what the temperature was outside before they went down here. And they said it was, like, around, like, mid-80s.
What's that in Celsius?
It is 34.5 degrees Celsius.
Fuck. That's pretty warm, I'm not going to lie to you.
Pretty warm.
I would.
Pretty warm.
Jesus Christ.
In case you were wondering what 69 degrees Fahrenheit was, since, you know, that's the temperature of Veek's apartment constantly, it's 20.5 degrees Celsius in Veek's apartment.
That's... Okay, that's a little bit on the chilly side, I guess.
A little bit.
Just a little
perpetually
bit. It's
a little bit chilly.
A little bit below room temperature, you know.
So this chapter ends with Nate wondering how hot it would be at the bottom of the tunnel, and Zila like, well, there's only one way to find out.
Step after step into the unknown.
Indeed.
What's that? It's the unknown. Chapter 44. How the trio shared stories about their lives as they traveled miles below the surface of the earth.
So it was about 217 feet to that first bend. You remember the first bend that Veek wanted to walk to?
Yeah.
Yeah. Zila was fairly certain the tunnel was pointing northwest because of, like, spatial orientation shit.
Doubt.
Zila was pretty sure that they were under the Kenmore intersection. And Roger was like, oh yeah, I think I can hear the cars.
See, I just like, when people, like, subconscious bias thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, she goes, I'm fairly certain of this. And then Roger is like, yeah, I think I can hear the cars, man. Yeah. Doubt. Fucking doubt.
I doubt too. I think it was very likely Roger was just saying that because, he's got the hots for Zila.
Literally. Which is pretty much all these next couple of chapters are, is just Nate third wheeling.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
They keep walking. The best Nate could tell, they would walk about 100 yards, which for Americans' reference, that's about the length of a football field. An American football field. I don't know how long a soccer field is. Or, a normal football field is.
115 yards.
115 yards. Okay, not too far off. So they'd walk about a sports field and then round a bend and walk the same length back the other way. And they would just, like, that was the whole trip, just going down this really long, windy shaft.
I would lose my fucking head.
Well, after an hour of walking, they decided, okay, let's chat.
There's no way that you can... There's no way they were walking in silence for a fucking hour.
Probably not. I imagine they were making a little chit-chat or something. But, like, the narration says, like, after an hour of walking, Roger spoke up. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like... I think we talked about this before. Things are very different from, like, the main character's perspective versus, like, the other character's perspective. So, like, I know you mentioned in, like, the Dresden Files, there's, like, another book or something in the Dresden Files where it's taking the perspective of the people around Harry Dresden.
There was a short story. Yeah.
Yeah,
and, a few short stories take place from other characters' point of view.
Yeah, and every single time they interact with Harry, he's just fucking sitting there in silence like an autistic boy. Just not reacting to anything and looking like he's going through turmoil at all times. Like, not making eye contact with anyone and, But from, like, his perspective, he's, like, really analytical and understanding what's going on, and he's, like, trying to be calculated about hiding information from them and stuff like that. And then to everyone else, it's just, like, you ask him a question, you just don't get a straight answer, and then there's, like, a minute of silence between every fucking sentence.
Oh my gosh.
Too good. It's like when they removed the laugh track from Friends.
Oh god, I hate the laugh track.
Have you in Friends, like the he ate my sandwich, like who ate my sandwich? With Ross.
Ate my sandwich.
Have you seen
sandwich? Yeah, what about it?
Have you seen them remove the laugh track from that?
It's so fucking unhinged.
It's literally serial killer energy. It's so bad.
I mean, there's a reason that they made him go to therapy after that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, not anyway. I want to talk about this. That guy who ate his sandwich was a fucking bellend.
Oh, he absolutely was. He absolutely was.
He's like, well, it was so large, I had to throw some of it away. Let me go get it out of the trash for you. Like, what?
I know. not human behavior. But like the thing that really aggroes me, right? And this I think is worse than both people who read the last page of a book before they start and people who put milk in their tea, although that one's debatable. Milk in your tea first, rather. If you work in an office and you eat someone else's labeled fucking food, like, you know what you brought into the office.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you absolutely know that you
yeah.
brought food into the office. Offices do not have communal fucking foods.
No.
Which means
when
you're
they
just
do, it's very clearly labeled.
I know. It's so bad. I literally don't understand how anybody with a conscience because you're just making someone else go without food.
Anyway, we're not talking about 90s sitcoms on this podcast. We're talking about this book.
14 by
Peter Klein.
Peter Klein. There we go. Yeah, Peter Klein's. Yeah, I knew that time. I was going to say it.
Roger asked Zila about her interest in art, and she didn't really seem all that interested in, like, talking about her past. And he's like, all right, we don't have to talk. And he just, like, hangs back and is like, I can just, like, stare at your ass the entire time instead. And this was silly, right? She's like, oh, no, I dropped my phone. And then she, like, bent over to, like, moon him. I mean, she didn't really moon him because that, like, involves, like, showing your bare ass. But, like, she bent over and then, like, nearly ate shit. And Nate caught her.
Yeah. And then Nate said something. She was like, one show per customer.
So then we get pretty much Zila's life story here, which is interesting. You want to talk about that?
Well, I mean, she was grew up, went to a private school. Her parents decided, well, their dad mainly decided that she was going to be a doctor, she was going to be a surgeon, and was like, this is what you're doing, but not in like a forceful way, in a literally like in the same way that you kind of like know that the sky's blue. You know? Yeah, it's like,
just
the
like,
sky's
this
blue.
This is what's going to happen. You're going to be a surgeon.
You're going to be a surgeon, and so that was like her whole thing. At a super young age, she had like coloring books and stuff, and she'd like go through every single page of the coloring book, including the mazes and like the like crosswords or word searches or whatever other stuff is in like those sorts of.
She just loved coloring as a little
absolutely.
kid. Yeah,
and so. When that was taken away from her, because it's like, it's time to knuckle down, and you know, she like went to private school and started studying like crazy subjects like Russian history.
She had to make her focus to be everything she needed to do in school to be an ideal med school candidate.
That just sounds fucking miserable if you don't want to be a med student.
Yeah. And so in her sophomore year of high school, there was this new guidance counselor who came in. She was pretty sure this guy was like brand new, like just finished his education for this job.
Wasn't much older than her.
Maybe like 10 years older than her. Yeah.
Yeah.
He like asked her, like, do you want to be a surgeon? And like her answer wasn't like enthusiastic about it. So like he got the idea. Like, he understood without her saying it. So, like, okay, someone's making you do this. Probably one of your parents. So he's like, well, unfortunately, the Russian history class is booked. And Zila's like, I'm pretty sure he picked painting out of a hat. Like, he picked it at
just
random,
like
but it was exactly what I needed. She got a painting class. And it was like a dam broke, and she just was super into painting again, super into art. And then like she got caught by her mother, like there was some paint on one of her sleeves, and that just fucked everything up. Her dad got the guidance counselor fired. All of the teachers were terrified of getting fired as well if they let Zila into her class. Sneeze. But she was moonlighting all of these fucking classes, like all these art classes, and the teachers were terrified, but they figured it would probably be fine because she wasn't like actually in the classes, but she would like spend as much time in art classes as she fucking could.
Yeah.
And then she got into Yale, and as soon as she got there, she changed all of her med school classes to art classes.
Yeah, she got into Yale, and her dad was disappointed because he wanted her to go to Harvard.
Fucking, this
What
is
a dick. Fucking shitty attitude to have.
just
like,
the epitome of entitled upper class white man.
Yeah, literally.
But yeah, no,
So-
her first semester was wonderful. And then, of course, her dad saw her grades and saw that she wasn't taking any med school classes. And so that was a very awkward winter break. So basically, her dad was like, if you keep going like this, like, I'm going to drop you from med school. I'm not going to pay for your med school.
Yeah.
Like, you are undoing all of the hard work that we have done for you. And she's just like, I didn't want to go to fucking med school anyway, Dad. And so, yeah, it didn't go great. She spent
she
a
drops
semester going to community college after that.
Yeah.
And then she and like 4 of her friends got this idea to go to LA and start up a commune and like get inspired by all of the artistic folks out there. And I loved Roger's response. Like he just said dead serious, like, you didn't know anything about LA, did you?
Yeah. She had like this idea in her head that she was gonna like move with her friends and like create like a Andy Warhol's like factory, creative space, loads of people coming and going, and then discovered that rent even split 5 ways for like a lodge that big that could be an art like studio space was like
huge.
super expensive.
Yeah.
And also one of the guys just like wanted it to be just like a harem instead.
2 of the guys.
Two of the guys.
It was including Zila, it was 2 men and 3 women, and both of the men were under the impression that this was going to be like a communal sex thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So,
so that only lasted for a few months. Her mom paid for her to live in a hotel for a couple months after that. She got a waitressing job, and then she discovered the Kavach building. And then she started taking art classes at the community college nearby, and that brought her to the present. And she said, that is the story of the woman who once was Alexis Thorpe.
to which rightfully both Nate and Roger were like, who the fuck is that? and that is Zila's real name, and she changed it to try and avoid baggage. Yeah. She's like, I'm an artist, I can't be carrying around baggage. And Roger was like, isn't that what like all artists do though? Isn't that like the whole thing? And then there was like moments of just like Zila and Roger flirting back and forth to that. Then.
And then Roger shared his story. So like his story was less interesting, but I found it far more relatable. Like he summed it up best before Zila made him like, expound on it. But basically he just fell into being a grip. And she was like, oh, come on, really? I told you all that and you're just going to tell me you fell into being a grip? And he was basically like, okay. I got a bachelor's degree. I don't remember what he got it in. I think it was in engineering.
Yeah.
But then like the best he could do was Target, and even then like he had to lie his ass off through the stupid questionnaire that they make you do. And Nate was like, "Ugh, I hate those." And for a reason that I understand very well, I don't know if you've ever taken any of these quizzes, but they're fairly common in the States. It is the most inane like quiz you could possibly take, because they're asking you like all of these leading questions to like get you to answer in certain ways, and you don't know what answer they want. Like, so you're just guessing what they want you to say, really? Because like the multiple choice answers for these questions are never answers that I would actually give if it wasn't multiple choice.
Yeah. I mean, right. Here's one for you, and this is an absolute winner. If you have like if you're doing like these fucking stupid job assessment quizzes and shit that are required, like they've got them on, do you know Indeed? Like
I'm
fucking-
very familiar with Indeed. What of it?
yeah. So they've got like loads of assessments on Indeed, and you have to like
They do.
yeah,
they do.
they're an absolute nightmare.
This episode of Functionally Illiterate is not brought to you by Marvel Comics. Do you know why this episode is not brought to them by Marvel Comics today, Jake?
I do not.
Well, so for posterity, this is July of 2024. And just today, I found out the silliest, dumbest news from Marvel ever.
Okay, what is this? I used to be more invested in the Marvel stuff. I'm a little behind now. What is the news? What's the tea?
So, Marvel has decided that it is in their best interest. Marvel Comics, mind you. I can't speak for the rest of Marvel, but Marvel Comics has decided that it is in their best interest to not put the last page of their comic book in the issue itself, and instead, on the final page, there will be a QR code. In order to see the last page of your comic book, your physical comic book that you bought, you have to scan the QR code to read the final page.
Oh no. Oh, that's so bad. That's fucking atrocious.
That is...
Why?
That is dog shit. That's what that is.
That's so bad.
That's
There's so many issues
bad.
with that.
Do you know why they're doing that?
Engagement on their website or something, so they can sell stuff on the web page.
It's an anti-spoiler measure.
Oh,
Because
that's fucking stupid.
Apparently, there are people that get a hold of the comics before release date, which, that makes sense. I imagine some people will do that. But then they'll, scan the comic book and just, share it on Reddit or whatever.
But do they not know the print screen exists?
I don't know. But, I was reading this article about it, and, apparently some people were just like, why not just make it a fucking online comic book then? And then, just print the trades at that point. And I agree.
That doesn't stop. That doesn't stop people from, you can just print screen the page.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop it just makes... Or if you fucking buy a comic book now, right? And then the QR code stops working.
And you know what? That was literally the first thing I thought of. What happens when your stupid QR code that you put in the back of your stupid comic book doesn't fucking work anymore? Yeah. Which inevitably
we don't
will
support.
happen.
It is inevitable. Apparently there's a limit on the number of QR codes that can exist, I think. I heard that somewhere once. Can you imagine you run out of QR codes and then you got to start reusing QR codes? And the ones that they decide to reuse are the ones that are used for Marvel Comics. And then the fucking last page of the comic book just starts disappearing one at a time.
So dumb. And I love Marvel Comics. I really do. But this is a bad move, man. This is not it. Not it.
It's not.
Anywho.
Anyway.
As you can tell, we don't have any sponsors. We'd like some, though. We'd love some sponsors. If you're interested in sponsoring this show, reach out to us at funk.lit.pod@gmail.com. That is func.lit.pod@gmail.com. If you are a run-of-the-mill ordinary person that doesn't need a sponsorship, you can still support the show if you'd like. We have a PayPal for one-time donations, and we have a Patreon for regular donations. If you join the Patreon, you can get this show ad-free. We don't have any ads, as I've mentioned, but we do have this mid-break bit. So, if you sign up for the Patreon, you get to skip this bit, and then the show will just go on nice and neat and normal, like nothing happened. Back to the show.
If you just go on Like while you're whatever your fucking time frame is for finding a job or whatever you're doing, just I don't know, buy ChatGPT for like a month or whatever. Do all of the Indeed assessments by screenshotting and uploading the screenshot to ChatGPT and asking GPT what the answer is, and it'll just tell you the answers. It takes 5 seconds. You get all the answers right. You get all of the assessments right. You don't have to think about it. It's so fucking simple.
That's wonderful.
And it literally, because my kind of like thought surrounding that is like, if they're using AI on the other fucking side to assess whether people are going to be good at the job or not, you may as well use AI on the on your side to make sure that you get assessed
shit like
correctly.
This is why the dead internet theory is not implausible.
It's not. It's not.
Just
it's
fucking
literally
bots talking to bots.
That's all it fucking is. Finding a job in the current market is just using fucking AI to write your resume in a way that completes a level of accuracy to the job description, which was probably also written by AI. And then you submit your CV to be assessed by AI to see whether you're shortlisted for an interview where all of the fucking questions are probably written by AI. Yeah. And all of your answers, you'll just research using AI. It's like, people aren't fucking real anymore.
Nah, it's a shame, isn't it?
Anyway,
no, I mean, literally, like, Roger's story amounted to, he literally just fell into it.
Yeah.
Like, he got an opportunity to do it, and it paid really well, and so now he's doing it. And then Zila kind of asked him about the future, or maybe it was Nate, I don't remember. One of them asked him, like, if it was something he wanted to keep doing long term, and he said he wasn't sure, because it pays really well, and, like, a lot of the older guys that he works with that are nearing retirement, like, they're really good guys, it's just they're always just tired.
Yeah, that's such a relatable thing. Like, I've worked in working in theaters, it's very much like that. Kind of like there is a lot of the people that I knew when I was working in a lot of theaters. There's this, I don't know, the mentality surrounding it is very like interesting to me. And then it's like the minimal amount of effort that can be put in, you know, during your day, because everything's just fucking exhausting. And there's like so many people that I met where that was kind of the case, you know?
Yeah. They when people like spend all of their time working, like, I mean, you know, Roger said it when we first met him, he works like 70 hours a week. When you work that much, it's very common for people to begin moving and operating in a way that is the most like optimal way to move the least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
it's just so exhausting.
Yeah. And it's so funny, when I was working in theaters, someone I had this bit of advice off a couple of different people, right? And it's so good, it cracks me up so much. They're like, here are the rules of working in a theater as a tech, right? Don't do shit. As in, but not in like don't do anything, as in don't do anything poorly, don't do it shit, you know? If you're gonna do something, try and do it okay, you know?
Yeah.
If you are gonna do shit, don't fuck up.
Yeah.
You know? And if you do fuck up, don't tell anyone.
And if you get caught,
don't get caught. That's the rule. It's like, you know, don't do shit. Don't fuck up. Don't get caught. That's the
wonderful. Well, anyway, circling back to the book, Roger, during his story, also mentioned how someone told him about the Kvatch building. He reached out to them, and then they did a background check, and he got in. And then Nate realized a similarity between Zila's story and Roger's, which was how they talked about the Kvatch building. They didn't find it online. They heard about it from word of mouth. And Nate realized he did too.
Yeah, so there are no listings, basically. Like, nobody in the building found the building through a listing. And I think that kind of like, I think you mentioned this in an earlier episode, where it's like, they seem to be looking for people who are desperate, so they won't ask any questions.
Yeah.
You know, and they won't go snooping because they're too afraid of losing the really cheap apartment, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which Nate and Zila fell into that perfectly. I don't know about
Mhm.
Roger. Dude seems to make a lot of money.
Yeah, Roger seems to make quite a bit of money. But I guess,
Yeah.
like, he would pass the inspection because he's not in the apartment at all, really.
Yeah.
Because he works 70 hours a
Like,
week.
he's so busy that, like, he
Yeah.
really just sleeps there.
Yeah.
So, you know, they keep walking. They take their first break. And Zila asks how long they'd been walking. Nate checked his pedometer, and it was a little over 5 miles. So they were probably about 2,000 feet down.
Yeah.
And he checked his thermometer, and now it was reading 99 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 37 degrees Celsius.
That's so warm.
Mm-hmm. Zila packed with the understanding that it would get colder because that's typical when you go further down. And Roger was just dumb. He was just like, wait, we'd be getting closer to the core of the Earth, so wouldn't it get warmer? And it's like, we're not going that fucking deep, Roger.
I know. That's like, what was it he said? He was like, that's like saying it's colder in like, what was it, like North California because you're closer to the Arctic Circle or something.
Something like that, yeah. When they had walked 7 miles, then Roger started commenting on the copper cable along the wall. He was marveling at how there were 9 pieces of bundled, unbroken cable just all along this tunnel, more than 7 miles long, unbroken pieces of copper cable. Like, he was just amazed. He was like, even back then, that would have been unbelievably expensive to have copper cable that long.
Which is a fair point. Copper cable is very expensive.
Oh, yeah. I remember as a kid, I had a friend, we would strip electronics of copper as a hobby to go sell in town.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that do that. This, what is it, people in the UK who drive trucks around with like a megaphone on the top, and you can never understand what they're saying. Like, ride a boat, like they're literally in the street shouting like absolute nonsense about how they're gonna like take your fridge or your old freezer or washing machine or any electrical appliances, and all they do is
so
just
they can
like,
get at the copper.
Yeah, they strip all the metal out of it and sell the metal.
Yeah. But so this chapter ends when Zila, she stops to examine one of the burnout bulbs. And she was like, you guys keep going. I'll catch up. I want to look at this. And Nate was like, we really shouldn't split up. And she's like, what difference does it make? It's one tunnel. I'm not exactly going to get lost. And Nate was like, I don't know. And then Zila's like, look, I have to piss, okay?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, if you got to go, you got to go. And she probably should have gone before she left. That's an oversight.
Probably. But, I mean, they've also been walking for hours.
How many hours at this point?
At this point, I'm not sure. After an hour, they had walked a couple miles. Time kind of loses meaning after a certain point. I'm not sure how long they've been walking.
Yeah,
I would
fair.
argue they've probably been walking like maybe 6 hours at this point.
Yeah, I wonder. They do mention at some point that they'd been walking for like 5 hours.
Yeah. But,
So
so the chapter ends with her like, just go around the bend so I can pee and I'll catch up.
Yeah.
Chapter 45. How the trio found the elevator at the end of the tunnel. Oh, well, here it is in my notes. It took them... they've been traveling for 4 hours at the beginning of chapter 45. So It was less than 4 hours when she needed to pee.
Okay, cool.
They took a second break. The temperature was now 102 in the tunnel, which is nearly 39 degrees Celsius.
Fucking hell.
I know.
Jeez.
And so Roger was just like, okay, time to take the shirt off. Nate agreed. He took his shirt off. Zila took off her shirt too, but she refused to take off her bra.
That's an understandable position to hold.
It is. It is.
I feel like
no, because she was just like, sorry. She was like, at first she was like, I'm sorry to disappoint you boys, and then she takes her shirt off anyways, and she's like, what I meant was I'm not going fully topless. And it's like, well, sure. I mean, you're walking anyways. Like, you want to probably have a little support.
And I don't think that, like, I don't know. Were they expecting that? If you're like one of them, would you be expecting that? I don't think so. Like, I don't know.
To take off her bra? No, I would not be expecting that in this moment.
It's so fucking, I don't know. The clarification is unneeded.
We discover something kind of important here, which is that the arches, like, supporting the tunnel are very weak. Like, Roger leaned on one while he was stretching, and it gave a little, and Zila yelled at him, like, stop, stop, stop. You're going to collapse the tunnel.
Yeah, what a moron. I guess he'd been walking for so long, and I guess just like didn't think about it. But yeah, don't be touching the fucking
gave
walls.
As he was leaning on it, and some rocks fell from the ceiling.
Yeah, don't be touching the walls. Don't be touching the arches. Don't be touching.
Don't touch
fucking anything.
Shit.
Yeah, don't touch the cabling. Don't. They were blowing dust off the light bulbs and like screwing certain light bulbs in and stuff to help illuminate the what's it called, tunnel more on their way down. And that's fair enough, to be honest. But yeah,
so then they traveled for 10 minutes more, and then Roger realized he could feel something beneath his feet. It felt like a big engine to him.
Yeah, big
after a couple more bends down this tunnel, Nate could feel it too.
Which, I don't know how unperceptive that makes Nate.
What do you mean?
Well, how does Roger feel it, but then Nate's like, nope, don't feel that. And it takes like a couple more fucking bends, you know?
I don't know. But
because Zila felt it as well, didn't she?
I don't recall.
Yeah, I fairly certain I remember them mentioning like Zila hearing it or like feeling it or like something to do with it. And then Nate was the only, because I remember being like, why is Nate so like completely unperceptive to this fucking rumbling?
I don't know, but when he did feel it, it felt to him like an earthquake, only constant.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like a minor earthquake.
Yeah, that's only people who have lived in LA for a long periods of time would be able to like notice.
Eventually, they could all hear it too. It sounded like an engine
rumbling.
And then suddenly, all three of them stumbled, and I thought it was kind of amusing why they all stumbled. It was because they weren't going downhill anymore.
Yeah, that was really good. Because, like, as it plateaued out, they just, like, their muscles were not used to walking on flat ground, as they definitely wouldn't be. For, like, fucking how many hours? God knows how many hours. Like, 7 hours or some shit.
Something
8 hours.
Like that,
yeah. Of just, like, walking downhill. You would be knackered. You'd be so tired. And, walking on flat ground would feel alien at that point, I think.
Yeah, and their muscles were protesting while they were.
Yeah.
But so then they found a chamber with a strange cage the size of a phone booth, and they realized, oh my god, it's the elevator. Zila and Roger found the coins that Veek and Tim dropped down there.
Yes, and it gives me the impression that it's like quite a wide room, like a relatively like wide room, which would be why you definitely couldn't hear, and how deep, fucking over a mile deep. That would be why you couldn't hear the fucking noise.
Uh-huh.
And also the fact that the coins might not have hit anything metal when they reached the bottom. They could have like hit the wood,
because
or they could have hit like the dirt.
The floor was wood in here, right?
Yeah. It wouldn't have like pinged at all. So very interesting.
The chapter ends with them like finding double doors like the ones above, only not barred up. And on the other side of the doors, it was like much hotter. And then Zila's like, holy shit! And that's how the chapter ends.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. I like it.
Just gotta love that cliffhanger. You gotta have a cliffhanger.
Yeah. I mean, I do like a cliffhanger, to be fair. Chapter 46. How the trio discovered that the Kvatch building harnessed the power of a fault line.
So this chapter starts from Roger's point of view for some reason.
Yeah, I feel like, the writer's just doing this for fun to amuse himself,
Yeah.
I think he might just get bored of writing from Nate's perspective and just like starts writing from someone else's for fun occasionally.
Because there's really no reason for this to be from Roger's perspective.
No, because he's not offering like a unique perspective of the situation, and it's not introducing us to him in like a deep and meaningful way, in the same way that it has when they introduced Mandy through like her section that was written for her perspective. And then who else did they do this with? They wrote another bit from
later on. It's gonna be from Veek's perspective briefly.
Oh no, it wasn't that. There was another person's perspective earlier in the book, I do believe. That wasn't Nate's perspective.
Mandy.
Yeah, and then there was someone else for a brief
I don't remember
period.
anybody else.
Oh really?
Not off
Maybe
the top
I'm
of my
just.
head.
Maybe I'm. Yeah. I
No, Clive. It was Clive.
Yeah, and it gave like more. Like I don't know. It gave us an introduction to Clive in a way that made sense. Because it was the introduction. Whereas this one feels completely out of place because it's just
Roger looking around. Like we could have seen that from Nate's perspective.
Yeah, and like Roger's, I don't know, as a one-note character, dude bros aren't very insightful, so it's not really doing much either. Did you get what I mean?
Well, anyways, he's looking around. The place kind of reminded him of a film set. Like, it kind of looked like a stadium in size. It looked like a natural structure that was discovered and added to. Like, many of the structural supports were, like, made out of, like, steel. And there was a makeshift chandelier for some reason. Many of the lights were burnt out, but some were still burning.
Mm-hmm.
They discovered in this space 6 huge generators that all the cables originate from.
Yes. I like the writing where Roger like catches himself being like, "Oh, all of the cables run from these generators," and it's like an interruption of thought because they've been walking like the opposite direction to the way that the power's flowing. Yeah.
Like they were finding the source of the power.
Yeah. And it's like that short little update. I feel like they do
generators.
That well. Yeah.
There were also pipes going into a ditch from the generators.
Mm-hmm. And this ditch, let me tell you about this ditch. So they're like, what is it? They're looking around the room. Zila pulls out her camera, but she's like not looking while she's pulling out her camera because she's just in awe of this room. And it is scaldingly hot in this room.
Very
the 6
warm.
generators
very
are like all glowing. And they were all like stood on these like platforms, and the pipes are going into the ditch, as you said. And then Nate, while the other two are looking around, Nate is just stood at the edge of this ditch, just staring into the abyss. Yeah. And the way that they described how deep this goddamn hole in the earth is, was like Nate remembering looking all the way off to a horizon line, but down.
Yeah.
Which is fucking wild. But at the bottom of it is like just glowing. They can see the bottom of the ditch and it's just glowing magma. And it's at this point where they're like trying to talk to each other, but the generators are too loud and they're like having to shout to each other, but nobody's really hearing each other. And it's like they've basically discovered a fault line. And the generators...
It's described as a wound in the earth.
Yeah. And it's where the power is coming from. So it's thermodynamic
Geothermal.
geothermal. That's the I love it when you take notes. It's so good. I don't have to remember shit. Yeah, but these generators use the heat to generate power for the building. So they've just discovered infinite power, which I'm not sure how I mean, dare I say how fucking realistic that is.
So geothermal generators are an actual thing. They're not common just because of how difficult they are to set up. You know? I mean, like, look at what they had to do for this building.
How effective are they? And how long can they run for? I feel like I want to go off, and I should have done research about fucking geothermal energy, to be honest with you.
I don't know a ton about geothermal generators. I don't know. I don't know if plausibly you could set up geothermal generators like 120 years ago and like expect them to still be running.
That's fair. I mean,
I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's a fair point. It's the question of like because they talk about because Rogers like worked on film sets and there's a lot of generators on film sets. He estimates how much power output they'd have, but they're bigger than the ones on set, but they're also older. So they just assume that they're possibly putting out the same amount of energy as like a modern film set generator would, which I'm not sure how accurate a calculation that is, but
it's not accurate at all. They have no idea. Chapter 47. How the trio searched for clues around subterranean geothermal generators.
They like try to calculate the fucking power, and their calculations are just like non-calculations. This just fucking guesswork. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So Nate did some mental math because per Roger, generators on movie sets were half the size of what they found here. And those put out 1,500 amps. So by that logic, all the generators down here must be putting out at least 9,000 amps, maybe twice that. They also found a company label on one of the generators. The company label was Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company. Roger recognized that name. They make, like simple electronics nowadays.
What? Can you imagine going into like an over 100-year-old mine shaft and finding names of companies that you actually recognize?
Oh, Milwaukee. I recognize that. Yeah, that'd be weird.
That would be fucking weird. And so they go and they're searching around, and there's a whole bunch of stuff in the room.
Desk.
Yeah. But it's like everything in the room seems to be like, it's been exposed to heat for like 100 years.
Yeah, like there's papers in there, but you can't touch them or they'll crumble.
Yeah, they literally everything in that room is kind of just like cinder, but like preserved ash, you know, in the form that it was.
Like what was left of a chair.
Yeah.
The table, the desk is like super baked dry. Like you can't use this desk.
Yeah, it's very the whole room seems to be like on the edge. And there's like wasn't there paper kind of like scattered around as well?
There was, presumably because of all of the drafts from the heat.
Yeah. So basically Nate goes to touch stuff. The stuff starts disintegrating and he stops himself before asking Zila to run around with a camera and try and take pictures of as many different pieces of paper as possible.
Yep.
And those pieces of paper, one of them being like a newspaper that was sat on the desk, which tells us which year it was when that paper was there, which is very convenient. And Zila was like, there's always a big headline in movies. Ooh, yeah, tell us the year.
1894.
1894.
And Zila makes an interesting comment here where she's like, whenever she's like watching a movie or something and they want to like date how long ago it was, like there's always a newspaper where like some huge big thing is happening.
Yeah.
And like it always took her out of the movie. But this newspaper, it's just an ordinary newspaper, which in her mind like lends credibility to everything they're seeing.
Yeah. It was like literally, instead of having like a big headline, it was like a bunch of different little stories because nothing apparently happened in the news on that day.
There was also a shed, which Zila and Roger cracked open. It turned out to be an outhouse.
Yeah. And Zila was
Nate was like, oh, well, if you just waited a little bit longer, you could have used this. And Zila was like, I don't know if I would have used this. And I don't think I blame her because it was literally just a seat with a hole that goes down into the depths of the earth.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to shit into that hole either.
Me neither. Sounds horrific. So, what else was in this room that they found?
So the chapter ends with them finding this image of it's a cross section of the Kvatch building.
And there were 2 rooms that they could make out the labels for.
One of them was apartment 14, which seemed clear to them because it had the same symbol from apartment 16. It had an X and words that said danger in different languages.
Mm.
And that was just like a black box with like white lettering, if I recall. And then there was another box that was recognizable as Debbie and Clive's apartment because it was 2 stories tall.
Mm-hmm.
And in that box, there were 4 words, but only one of the words was legible. And that word was control.
So we know that room 14 is dangerous and room 16 is Debbie and Clive's, isn't it?
Their apartment is 13.
13, that one. 13 is control of some kind, which I was like, so my theory at this point was that I had no idea what the fuck was going on with 14. I'm like, maybe it's another, like, I don't know, suicide room, but it's like more instant, you know? You walk in and you're like, I can't be here anymore, you know, like you're done. And then the control room, this is where my theory was that the building had some sort of purpose that required a level of control, and the control room was where you would navigate how to make changes to whatever the building does, if that makes sense. And that's what all the power was for. So that was my assumption. So you
interpreted it as a control room?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my interpretation when I saw this, which made me very excited for when they headed back up to the top. Chapter 48, How the Trio Returned to the Surface.
So, this chapter started from Veek's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
She was sitting in the break room, looking through all their notes to see if there was something she'd missed. A lot of what she had already known before Nate moved in, but now there was so much more. So she was like looking for a new connection or a fresh perspective, like something she might have missed, and now that she has all of this new information.
Mm-hmm. And so she's like, there's like loads of different pictures and stuff on the table in front of her. She's having like a look through them all, and then all of a sudden she hears someone coming into the room.
And it's Andrew.
Yes, it is Andrew.
This dude,
everybody's favorite.
This guy, man, he's so strange. Like, he went down there and he's like, I didn't realize anybody else was down here. And Veek was like, we all agreed that we were going to spend a shift down here, remember? And then he's like, he thought about it. He's like, oh, yes, I recall Timothy wanted me to do a shift here on Sunday. And it's like, Timothy?
I know.
Dude.
Yeah, he just gives weirdo vibes. And then, like, the weirdo vibes continue. Like, and Veek notices, like, the weirdo vibes, and she just, like, suddenly realizes that she's in a basement. Not just a basement, she's in the sub-basement of, like, a building. And she's just alone with this fucking creepy dude. And the way she realizes that he's creepy was because he was smiling at her for the first time, and she didn't recognize him looking happy, but he didn't quite look happy. He looked creepy, and she was like, she was fairly certain he was harmless, but was also like, I don't want to risk this. So she kind of like hurries up the conversation and is like, well, I'm going to get back to it, and sort of like goes to look back to the pictures.
She made a point of listening until she was certain he was gone.
Yeah. And like paying attention to him out of the corner of her eye, which I feel like that's a very, appropriate response around Andrew.
He was just such a creepy fucking dude. Like, I know that women have to be super cautious around men.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. As a man, if I had that encounter, I think I would have behaved the exact same way. I would have definitely listened to make sure that guy was gone.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Like, fucking weirdo.
What you want, Andrew?
So then her point of view ends with her, like, she was, like, trying to regain her train of thought about a connection she was about to make about, like, all of this stuff. But then, like, before she could regain that train of thought, she was distracted by noise coming from the vault.
Yes.
So then,
and this is when the point of view shifts.
Back to Nate.
Yeah.
It obviously took them much longer for them to climb back up the tunnel than to go down. Like, they spent more than a day climbing. They had to stop and rest.
Yeah.
Turns out that, like, they weren't very far from the top of the tunnel when they did eventually stop to rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess when you don't know where the fuck you are and everything's the same, you could be, like, round the corner from the entrance and have no fucking idea. You know?
I mean, I suppose they could have counted how many bends there were and based it off of that. But, like,
can you
if
imagine doing
that
for fucking 8 hours, though?
Yeah.
You know?
Like,
the only way to do that would be, like, with a counter. You know, because you couldn't mentally do that.
You would lose count eventually.
You'd lose count and you'd lose interest.
It's all so monotonous and the same.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised that they did, like, 8 hours there, like 13 hours back or whatever the fuck it was, That's wild. I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah. No, it's crazy.
It took its toll, though, so they were all absolutely knackered. They were all slung over each other, helping each other walk.
Yeah.
And
like they were all so, like, deliriously excited to reach the steps that, like, once they started climbing the steps, Nate was counting them out loud, and then all three of them started making it into a song.
Yes. Yeah. And then when they get to the top, Vik is like, "Welcome to the surface world." What was it that Zila said back? She was like,
I think she said she made some joke about, like, Morlocks or something.
Yeah, it was like some nerdy shit, but it was cute. It was nice. I liked it. Very fun.
Yeah. And then there was this funny bit where Nate. Like, Zila said she was gonna, like, the first thing she was gonna do was shower. And Nate was like, "You're gonna, like, take care of the photos first, though, right?" And she's like, "No, I'm gonna shower first." And he's like, "This doesn't take priority over cleaning up." And I loved her response. She was just like, this is a direct quote, "Nate, my dearest, nothing personal, but fuck you."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, like, listen, man, the photos aren't going anywhere. They're gonna be on the camera, okay?
I know. He's just fucking worried and excited, and he's absolutely shot, though. So, like, the next bit is an awkward hug with Vik, and then he started teleporting. So it's like he's with Vik, he's being helped up, and then at some point he, like, sees Tim, and he starts telling Tim about what he's seen, but then he keeps losing his train of thought, and then he's, like, in his apartment. It's like
he's
he keeps
very
teleporting around.
This is actually in the next chapter, though.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, this chapter ends with Vik asking if they'd found something cool, and Nate says, "Unbelievably cool."
Yes.
And that's how the chapter ends.
Cool. Amazing.
Yeah.
Is this the end of the episode?
We're gonna wrap up with that. You're gonna catch us in 2 weeks where the Mystery Gang they have another meeting of the minds and they decide their next moves.
I'm so excited. What do the numbers, Mason? What do they mean? What do the what does it mean? What is the danger? What is the control? How is it gonna work?
What is happening in this fucking building?
I know, right? I'm so pressed.
All right, we'll catch you all in 2 weeks.
Let's do it.
Bye.
Bye.